Africa Prime, brought to you by Jameson's Select Reserve.
Hello and welcome to Africa Prime. I'm Eleni Jokos. He is the man who has set himself the task of reindustrializing South Africa's maritime industry. He is Tsietsi Mokhele, the South African Maritime Safety Authority CEO. Tsietsi, great to have you in studio. Thank you so much for joining us on the program. Much appreciated for your time. I know that your mandate and your strategy is to reindustrialize the maritime industry in South Africa, and it seems like quite a tough task when you see some of the challenges. Before we delve into the challenges, tell us about your targets, your ambitions within this industry.
Mine are very simple. I think as an economy, we've missed out on participation in the full process of building the industrial capacity of the country. Because I think, by definition, when you talk about industrial productivity, that includes your ability to lend goods at market. But in South African context, for many, many years, we had built a closed-in economy, and we begin to suffocate. Because even where we had an advantage, we just missed out on the commodity boom now, where it was sustainable. I mean, for the last 10 years. You can see the mining sector, the commodity sector. But the one leg that we missed out on, we're very excited about mining and moving goods from the mine to Richards Bay, from the mine to Saldanha. But the longest leg of our participation is the sea leg. From here to our main market, to Japan, is 21 days. China, just about the same number of days. From the mine to Richards Bay, it's only 3 days. So because of that, it actually meant that our participation in that segment of transportation is only to the value of 30% of what was available. So we missed out on the 70%.
I mean, how many ships do we actually have? Leaving South African ships, do we have leaving from our ports?
From our ports,
to Japan and to the main markets?
12,000 per annum. 12,000 ships coming in and out of our country per annum.
South African ships or just all ships?
No, not a single one registered in South Africa. So 100% dependent on foreign carriage, costing our economy that the 2007 figure,
the 37 billion rand,
was showing that we were paying 37 billion rands to foreign ships to carry our goods, whether it's import or export. When we export, what we don't realize is that we actually import transportation. And when we import goods plus transport into the country, which means, logistically speaking, our participation is limited to 30% of the value. 70% is the carriers of our goods.
When you look at this number, and we said it's 2007 figure, I mean, this must be much higher than what we saw in 2000.
No, but now we're approaching 50 billion. Because then our volumes were about 170 million tons. We just closed the year on 260 million tons.
What can we do to make the scenario better, where we are paying this fee, but we're of course benefiting a whole lot more from import-export?
The issue is that the support industry to this effort suffered as well. I mean, we're not into marine manufacturing of any type or kind. We've got the shipyards in Durban. It's one of the biggest in the Southern Hemisphere. We've got shipyards in Cape Town. There are huge investments that have been attracted. But when you don't have ships of your own, the secondary industry collapses and follows likewise.
And you're pushing to enable this, to actually
start... the enablement, yes.
Yeah, exactly. Coastal and blue water merchant fleet. That's what you're pushing for.
That's the core, yes.
And policy framework that needs to come to the fore to enable this environment. How far have you gotten with that?
That is the exciting part in the whole thing. It was the most difficult one to do, because support is always support. Where there are ships, people will follow them. We are looking at a scenario now where this is now becoming a presidential project in the country. The president, cabinet, the ministers, all of them are beginning to come forward to articulate on this matter. So the package has now been put together, which is going to revolutionize our regulatory framework and then enable the investors. Because remember, it's not a state-driven business. It state enables, private sector invest. Just 2 days ago, I met with some investors who are looking at buying 10 ships. They're just awaiting changes to the regulatory system. So that's a first tranche of ships that are coming in. So I do believe that by winning on that one part, all the other pieces...
How long is this going to actually take?
No, by 2013, we'll start counting ships trickling onto the register.
South Africa's seaborne cargo constituting around 3.5%
of the world.
Of global sea trade.
Yeah, of global sea trade.
This is a very high figure that we're looking at.
It's high figure. I mean, we're only 50 million people. We're producing 264 million tons. So per South African, you definitely are showing we're producing more than we consume. And internationally, we're a very significant player. We rank in between number 12 and 13, just in the amount of tons that we move on the high seas out of and to our own economy.
Let's take a look at some of the other global trends that we see, and we keep talking about fleets that are very old and creating excess capacity on a global level. And we look at the Baltic Dry Index, and we know that also is exacerbated by how many fleets there are around and also the age of the fleets. We keep talking to Grindrod as an example, who keeps also telling us about the fact that we see too many fleets, and now fleets are being replaced with newer fleets. And again, we're seeing a lot of cannibalization happening as well. What is your view on sort of the capacity on a global level, and is there space for South African fleet to now enter this space, which we say they're already, we've seen too many ships at sea?
I hear those sentiments are true, but they're only true to the extent that they're not forming part of your strategy. If you look at the timing of coming into that market, in 2007, there were new orders of 9,000 vessels on the world fleet, 9,000 out of 60,000. That was a huge recapitalization and bringing in additional capacity. Then the recession happened, the financial crisis and so on and so forth. So what we are seeing is the economic management that has put us where we are at, but the anticipated volumes were there by 2007.
Absolutely.
So it went down. So if you come into the market now, is the best time for the buyers, not for the sellers. If you already own, you struggle to find volumes. But for those like ourselves who aspire to come into the market, you look at Grindrod. When was Grindrod built? It was built on the back of a recession. They bought then cheaper, fixed contracts, long term. When the market recovered, Grindrod just moved from hundreds of millions into a multi-billion rands entity. So it's the same thing. It's too big a crisis to waste on non-action.
So I see you're the man that finds opportunity within every single crisis. Are we looking at nationalized fleets? Are we looking at fleets that will be owned by government? And how is that going to work?
No, we definitely are not saying that. What we are saying is that the models are showing all over the world. What government wants is pure influence. Influence to the extent of saying, when do we need those fleets supporting our Navy? If Navy goes on foreign deployment. When do we need our fleet when somebody else boycotts our products and goods? Or when there's misunderstanding between ourselves and countries whose fleet we are using. I mean, Iran is a typical example now. Iran has the crude, but what is coming under pressure is the transportation means of getting into market. Now, if South Africa was to have a disagreement with somebody, I'm not talking about the UN, I'm talking about some geopolitical disruption, it could easily be that there's a withdrawal of the fleet to take some of our key commodities to market. So it's very, very important to have influence, not control. So the way I'm looking at it is that it will be a private sector driven with a state influence only on those components of the fleet that it requires for its own support.
Which private sector companies have you been speaking with, apart from Grindrod? That's the only shipping company I really am very cognizant of. I mean, that's listed on the JSE, that is. I'm sure there's a lot of private companies as well that might be showing interest. So tell us about the uptake thus far.
There are, just the past 6 to 8 months, I would have spoken to more than 5, because we are a commodity export country. When you're a commodity export country, what people are looking for are contracts with the mines to be the ones moving the goods from the market.
So we're looking at commodities here.
It's largely commodities just to come into the market. Yeah. And second is coastal shipping, and then you can start looking at the value added, which is much more difficult to crack into. So the companies that we're talking to now are linked to the mines. We've been consulting with the mine owners to say to them, wouldn't it be nice for them to extend their investment, not only look at exploration and digging out the commodity, but start participating in the long leg of getting their products to market. So there is a bit of an appetite there. Some of them were already doing it, but using foreign investment, integrating their logistics chains, but others were purely mining companies and entertainment.
And there's a lot of appetite that you've seen.
There's a lot of appetite that's showing up.
I would like for you to Tell us about free on board. Many products out of the country shipped with free on board, if you could just explain that for us. And then what you could actually do is cost insurance and freight, the CIF system, which a lot of other shipping companies use. So I know these are very, interesting phrases that are very, geared towards the maritime industry. Tell us about how one could actually be better for the economy relative to the other.
From one to the other.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest mistake we made in the country, that when we export free on board. Free on board, what it means is that I sell my commodity to you at the gate of my country. So I sell to you in Richards Bay. You are the one who takes the risk to come and pick up cargo and then go the other way. So you charge me for getting my goods to your market. Now, CIF, what it allows you to do, it allows you to have control. You nominate the ship that carries your goods. You're saying, I'm mining company A or B, or I'm country Z.
Yeah.
I'm exporting 120 million tons. I use FOB, which means I'm the one who makes a determination that I'm selling to you at your gate.
I see, okay.
So I own the product, I bring it to your gate, I charge you for bringing it to you.
So the profits increase for the other
party?
Yes,
for the party that is exporting.
Yes.
But when you are a commodity exporter in particular, and you don't go CIF, which is cost insurance and freight, instead to go FOB, you literally are cutting yourself completely.
But Tsietsi, why have we actually done this, and why is this only really coming to the fore now? I mean, obviously this has been a problem for a while.
The issue has been the lack of maritime awareness in the country. Just the failure to comprehend that there is no South African economy without shipping. 98% of our total trade is seaborne trade, 98%. Any business where you depend for 20%, 18% on one single factor, you look after it.
Yeah.
But if your economy depends to 98% on one mode of transport, wouldn't you look after it?
But and why aren't we capitalizing on it as we should? So is this then a fault by the South African Maritime Safety Authority? Is it a government issue? I mean, who's actually failed? Who can we point a finger to?
I think the economic vision for the country, it's one of the issues that I was just debating the other day, where people are saying, first, have a political kingdom, and then within your kingdom start figuring out the economics of your kingdom. Yeah. And I'm saying, you'll have no kingdom at all, If you've got a very good political construct, but where you can feed your own people, you've got unemployment of 40%. Start having those other factors that go back and undo your political kingdom. So that debate of what is the priority for South Africa, I think landed us exactly where we're at now. But I'm glad to see that the response is showing, both in government, private sector, but also the non-governmental sector. Our universities never offered maritime studies to any significant amount, which means even as the industry is resuscitated, you start suffering the problem of input skills into that industry, because universities are not offering much of that.
How many jobs can be created with a lot of the targets and ambitions that you've actually set forward?
Our sector can put to the fore about 400,000 jobs.
And how many are we currently employing?
We employ now about 160, 190,000.
That's an unbelievable amount. I mean, this is exactly what government should be focusing on.
It should be focusing on that, and then we can move up. The seafarer is 45,000. The rest are the shore-based support services that this sector can sustain.
We're going to a very short break, and when we come back, more with Tsietsi Mokhele, the CEO of SAMSA. Don't you go anywhere.